A list published by the Nebraska Crime Commission website this summer seemingly could have included some misconduct records of active law enforcement in the state. But it's not a police misconduct database, at least not for active officers. 3 News Now reporter Aaron Hegarty explains.
Last year we told you about a new law in Nebraska that, on its face, would have made some misconduct instance of active law enforcement public. But active officers won't be on the list, and here's why we thought they might be. The law says decertified officers should be on the list. That means they can't be an officer anymore in Nebraska. Also, convicted officers of serious enough crimes, and those found to have serious misconduct by a standards board. But what it really is just decertified officers. That's because if you're convicted, you're automatically decertified. And if you're found to have serious misconduct, that will be met with decertification as well. So there won't be active officers on this list, just former officers. That's not what Senator Terrell McKinney expected.
I would just say this is another example of the police, law enforcement system doing all it can to not be stewards of transparency. And I think it needs to change.
If the list included active officers, he said it could help with trust. When someone encounters an officer,
they go look at this list and they don't see you. And maybe the next time you interact with that individual, it's a better interaction. And it's not tense.
We also spoke with UNO criminology professor Jesse Huff.
If an officer engaged in serious misconduct that did not rise to the level of losing certification, they would not be included in that list. So that is kind of a limitation of this database.
But let's check how it works at the health department in Nebraska. It's different. Each month a report is released, and some have had their licenses revoked, but others were put on probation, censured, or penalized. We asked Don Arp, executive director of the Nebraska Crime Commission, to explain why, given what the law says, it isn't like this for law enforcement.
I understand the confusion. My perspective would be that if you have an officer who's engaged in serious misconduct, you have the grounds for a decertification, so there'd be no reason not to pursue the decertification.
There's no doubt this is more than Nebraska used to have. It's a list with details that you used to have to request formally. Huff says it could help out-of-state agencies hiring more readily learn of misconduct in Nebraska. ARP says hiring agencies will still have access to a broad look at misconduct records anyway. And with last year's legislation, most police misconduct is subject to mandatory reporting in the state. But it's not what some thought it would be, and whether this will be the final version and if changes will result in more decertified officers remain to be seen.
Probably just have to reintroduce something to strengthen it to make sure they do what, I thought they were supposed to do.
Aaron Hegarty, 3 News Now.
And Don Arp says they made improvements to the website since our last story on this topic to make the site more user-friendly.